What would you say if I told you dragons live in the mountains of Mandello, Italy? Roaring beast with twin cylinders, wings, and equal parts beautiful and terrifying. What's up, y'all? I'm Producer Trey, and this is the tale of the Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello press launch. Let's get into it. Okay, so obviously there aren't dragons living in the mountains of Mandello, but that's the idea that my brain latched onto after seeing the Moto Guzzi V100 for the first time a few months ago. I blame the beautiful bodywork that mimics how I think a dragon would bound across the sky. Much to my surprise, months later, I found out the sound and the riding characteristics just confirmed the self-imposed moniker. I seriously hope I don't offend anybody at Moto Guzzi or Piaggio by that analogy. Stick around, I'll explain. But before that, gotta get a baseline. The Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello is a 1000cc sport tour featuring Moto Guzzi's first liquid-cooled engine. If you've never ridden one, same. Until this press launch, I had never ridden a Moto Guzzi, but I have heard the bikes are known for their characteristic that comes from their transversely mounted V-twin. I can now confirm that is true. On startup, the bike comes to life unlike anything I've ever ridden before, but not like anything I've ever driven before. The way this bike comes to life vaguely reminds me of starting up anything with a pushrod V8. Nothing like anything new with those fancy overhead cams. I mean, old school, no replacement for a displacement, big block, insert your preferred manufacturer here. You hit the start button and the bike lurches to life. V100, you had my interest, now you have my attention. Built to the back of this motor is a 6-speed transmission that ultimately leads to a shaft drive, single-sided swing arm combo. Another first for me. The V100 Mandello comes with 4 rider modes: rain, tour, road, and sport that progressively gets more powerful in that order. But really, touring mode was more than sufficient for 90% of the riding that you'll do on any given day. Then, to round it all out, the bike comes in 2 flavors: the standard non-S model and the up-spec S model that comes with semi-active Öhlins and a quick shifter. Just so I don't gloss over it, the V100 does come with every rider aid that you can think of. 6-axis IMU, ABS, traction control, tire pressure monitoring, adjustable windscreen, and adaptive aero that I promise you isn't just a gimmick. It does affect the way the air flows around you, and it's so seamless you don't even notice it that they're deploying at higher speeds. We started off the press launch bright and early at Moto Guzzi HQ, where we got to walk through a portion of the factory to get to where the bikes were all lined up and waiting on us. The group really didn't take long to get going. There was a little bit of production work that went on before we were wheels up, but nothing like other press launches. Which reminds me, I was the only YouTuber there. Everyone else was with a major publication, that has a YouTube presence, which ultimately feeds their main source. MCN, Motorcyclists, Cycle World. That was the group of guys that I was riding with. I'm about to earn this caboose spot. Right out the gate, we were moving at a pretty good pace for just getting to know the bikes. It was obvious the bike had a good bit of weight to it when we were moving at the slower side and coming to a stop because I had to drive the brake a little more than I was used to. Nothing you couldn't look past when you felt how good the bike was when it was leaned over in a corner. We headed through these little towns and up into the hills for some media stops and with technical riding sprinkled in, and the bike felt amazing. Save for that lurch that I mentioned at the top of the read. Yeah, I kind of figured it would be continuously a factor throughout the whole riding experience, but I didn't think I would feel it so much. To get to the chase, it was completely my fault, and one of the journalists there ended up mentioning a helpful hint in conversation that completely changed my approach. Similar to the nicer press launch, I wasn't in the right gear. Thus, the motor wasn't spun up fast enough. Unlike more commonly used engine configurations, transverse engines have forces moving not in line with the direction of travel, but this isn't Moto Guzzi's first rodeo. The engineers at Moto Guzzi designed the Mandello's power plant to have counter-rotating internals to subdue those forces. However, if you're under a certain RPM, those forces can be more noticeable and affect your riding experience. Luckily, by the time I picked up on-set information, we were only halfway through the day. Man, this is starting to feel familiar. At this point, the media stops were all done. The only thing left to focus on was being the fastest caboose on a V100 that day. Bring it on. We tore into those hills and I still got left behind, but not nearly as bad with a bigger gap this time. On the straight and long sweepers, I was all good, but the minute that we got into those tight hairpins one after the other, I just watched the pack slowly disappear until things mellowed out and I could catch back up. But let the record show, however, after lunch, I was way more confident in sections of the road where I had to overtake cars to keep the group together. Actually, now that I think about it, I owe a big thank you to, I think it was Chris, for that first tip I mentioned earlier. But I also owe a thanks to Andy from Revzilla. I don't remember mentioning it, but I was going off the sound of your exhaust at the time, which was great for me because I really got to enjoy the sound of the bike, but then I also knew when it was time to drop a gear. After that, it really wasn't that long before we were back at Moto Guzzi HQ to wrap things up and prepare to say goodbye to the V100s. Do y'all remember what I referred to the V100 as? A dragon? I know everybody has their own interpretation of what a dragon is, symbolically, but there are two versions that stand out among the rest. Pure evil incarnate, with a dash of chaos and gluttony, or more preferably for me, strength, power, wisdom, even knowledge. The Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello, in my eyes, is the latter, only it's not mythical. It's real, and not for the faint of heart. Not to say bards will write songs about you when you hop in the saddle of this thing, but you've got to know what you're doing when you're riding one. Case in point. Bo, can we roll the clip, like, the clip? Something I left out entirely until now is I dropped my bike, and it was completely my fault. This all happened at one of the staging zones for a media stop. There was a 3 or 4 inch transition from where the road ended to where the gravel shoulder kind of picked up. There was a section close by that wasn't so dramatic, but for the life of me, I couldn't see it in the split second that I had to get myself situated because there were cars not far behind me. Then I sent it, and I should have just taken my time and ended up in this predicament. Luckily, the Moto Guzzi personnel was chill and swapped my bike out for another one because they had to give me the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't just me panic braking. But it was, and I can own up to that. I forgot to practice one of the things that I preach loudest when I'm talking to riders that are greener than myself. When you're in the saddle, you are the most important thing on the road as far as you're concerned. Then, on top of that, the ride took place 3 days after a full day of international travel and 2 days after a full day of riding Vespas in Rome. Also, link in the description of that video if you missed it. To keep with the running through line, one does not simply walk into Mandello and master the V100. This Moto Guzzi is capable of so much more than what I'm currently capable of, but it gave me a higher bar to reach for. So this is my unofficial, official declaration that I will find some way to ride the Mandello V100 again when my skills are capable of keeping up with the bike. Chase has his first rides. Maybe just for myself, I'll have re-rides with the V100 currently in the top 5. Until then, I've got some practicing to do and hopefully some more track days thrown in. After all that, what do you guys think of the Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello? I know I just had a whole tirade on how much of an expert level bike this is, but I'd recommend what I'd always do. Go find a dealer and sit on one. Don't forget to ask about a demo day. For this day, just like the Vespa day, there was a huge crew making things possible behind the scenes, and you guys did a phenomenal job. It was smooth running, perfect. For all kinds of two-wheel content, consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment. Until next time, I'm Producer Trey, this is Chaseontwowheels, thanks for watching. Outro crew, can't forget about y'all. Do you guys also associate bikes with things? Like Harleys are associated with bison in my head because they're American, they have that sloping back, and the sound on decel kind of sounds like them bellowing. Let me know in the comments below. Cheers, y'all.